Here is Jake Tapper, of all people, who sounds, I think, what is a pretty legit alarm. Now, Donald Trump is not situated in the same way that George W. Bush is. But nevertheless, there is a warning if you look back in past. And here is Jake Tapper to deliver it.
Completely frank, I'm getting real 2004 vibes tonight, which is Democrats want to defeat an incumbent Republican so badly, Democratic voters, I mean, that they decide which one is electable, and they decide, okay, it's John Kerry, or in this case, it's Joe Biden. There's a huge coalescing around that person. They want to end the primary process as soon as possible, and then basically they coronate this person. Now, what did we learn in the last few weeks? Mark McKinnon, former George W. Bush advisor, told me that actually they feared Howard Dean more. Because Howard Dean, even though he was less predictable, there was a starker difference between Howard Dean and George W. Bush. And he was drawing much bigger crowds than John Kerry was able to. And Howard Dean, we had him on the Sunday show, and Howard Dean said, now you tell me. But the point is that when you have the Democratic electorate deciding that they are all a bunch of Rachel Maddow's and Chris Hayes's and the like, that they're just, progressive pundits, and they're going to pick out who is the best one, maybe they don't necessarily always know what they're doing.
Wow.
Bernie Bro Tapper.
Now,
blame the electorate, Tapper.
I will say, like,
co-author.
I would hate to spend like 5 or 10 minutes to see if Jake Tapper was one of those people who buried Howard Dean over the screen, but maybe not. But yes, that is the fear, right? Everybody's saying Joe Biden seems like the most electable. I'm not terribly excited about him, but somebody must be. And then everybody turns around and looks around and goes like, what? No? I mean, look, if you've got this type of overwhelming support, or lack of support, I should say, from young people, the truth of the matter is that it is the vast majority of people who staff these campaigns at the mid-level and on the ground, and really even just above mid-level. There's not a lot of them who are over the age of 45, 50. I mean, there's a few, but there's not a lot. And the fact of the matter is that it's tough to get people out. I mean, Joe Biden is not going to have a tremendous amount of volunteers from his main electoral strength and cohort. People over the age of 65, there'll be some, without a doubt. But they're not going to get out there in the thousands and knocking on doors and getting out there and getting people. I mean, there'll definitely be some. And I say some, this is someone in my 50s. It's like, I don't have the same energy I used to have. Like, do that thing last night, I could do it again today and the next day, 10 years ago. But this is a problem. There's just not the enthusiasm for Joe Biden. There's a lot of like, let's just get this over with. And thank God I don't have to think about this.
Let's just get this over. Joe Biden 2020. Let's just get this over with.
When Joe Biden was asked about what would you do about coronavirus? His response was I just tell him to be quiet, sit back, let your people do it. And I think that is, when Pete Buttigieg said don't you just want to turn on the TV and not see anything about your president?
Yep.
I guarantee, it's well, the problem with that is if that's the attitude that people have also towards your campaign, nobody comes out and knocks on the doors. Nobody makes the phone calls. And, it's one thing for that to work in the primary because everybody's just let's just get it over with. But the general is a different animal.
And for what it's worth, yeah, you have the dynamic where, it's a replay of 16, except Donald Trump isn't like an outsider or whatever. He's the friggin' president.
Yeah, I don't know that it's exactly like 16,
Well,
but
maybe not.
this
There's
dynamic
parallels.
is very similar.
Yeah.
And I think it is like 04. And I would say this,
It's mostly
that
like,
if you want to show something to your parents, showing them a clip of Jake Tapper, not necessarily the worst thing in the world to do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then
And he
show
was-
like John Kerry reporting for duty.
Like, he leaves. Oh my God.
The other part that scares me about that parallel too is John Kerry ran on his being a war hero, and the reasons why he did it
Took
at the
care of that in a
time,
week.
the reason why he did it at the time were, sort of like to bring up a juxtaposition between the sort of failed war president George W. Bush and that he went AWOL and blah blah blah, and the problem with running based upon your personal attributes is those are the easiest things in the world to impeach. And really you don't even need to impeach them. You don't have to prove anything. All you need to do is just say, like, the premise and why this guy is running against me, that he has integrity, that he's going to clean up the office, blah blah blah. Well, I got news for you. I can make that guy smell just as bad as me.
Yeah, this
And-
guy especially.
And I can make that guy smell just as bad as me. And then you're just like, well, look, they both smell bad, so why should I leave the house?
Joe, your brother's under investigation and your son is on all these corporate boards. I don't know. I mean, that's integrity to you? That's bringing honor back to the White House?
And to be clear, when I've made this point on Twitter, people are like, people aren't going to listen to Donald Trump. Well, I know they're not going to listen to Donald Trump. They're just going to get ad after ad after ad after ad after ad with clips of just how Joe Biden smells. He smells bad. I mean, Joe Biden is running is like, I smell good. Donald Trump smells bad. I smell good. All Donald Trump has to do at that point is prove to people he smells bad.
And also, I want people to really get in both parts of the left and certainly the resistance world that what is scary to me that I could see anecdotally at least, and I think in some of the new poll numbers, it's not just, yes, there's a base and they are into Trump and whatever, that's it, but I think that people are underestimating the degree to which there are people that don't even necessarily like Donald Trump, but do not view him the way that you view him. They don't think he's beyond the pale. They don't hate him. They don't turn it like, they actually think they think like I think he's kind of entertaining and occasionally has a point. Now, I also happen to think he's utterly obscene and represents like basically like the end of our species. But my point is I think there were people, again, with the George W. Bush parallel, there were plenty of people who thought like, this is an arrogant kid who got us into a disaster overseas. But you know what? I also kind of like him. John Kerry seems like a prick. And I think like that needs to be factored into folks thinking that even with Donald Trump, to the extent there are a handful of people that are sort of floating around, they're not as polarized around him as you are. And that's in the poll numbers. I mean, he's got upper 40s approval rating. That is a totally plausible number for obviously holding your base and getting some other people to look at you.
Absolutely. And shout out to Jake Tapper for making that critique while utterly concealing the role that he himself, as well as the rest of the media and the Democratic establishment, played in convincing people of that.